Yo guys, what's going on? It's SEANO here, and I'm back once again with another video. This time it's for Phase 4, which is just around the corner. So it's time to start looking at Fire Mage. What is the best talents? What is the best runes? And what gear should we be going for, ready for the raids? Now we're going to start off with the talents. So fire is looking the strongest as normal, so we're going to go through fire in this video. I will look at the other specs and I'll try my best to upload videos for the other specs before the release on Thursday. Okay, for talents, what we'll want is 5 out of 5 in impact because we won't be using fireball at all. 5 out of 5 in ignite, 2 out of 2 in flame throwing, 3 out of 3 in improved fire blast, 2 out of 2 in incinerate, 1 in Pyroblast, 2 out of 2 in Burning Soul, 3 out of 3 in Master of Elements, 3 out of 3 in Improved Scorch, 3 in Critical Mass, 5 in Firepower, 1 in Combustion. Then we'll move over to the Frost Tree, where we'll pick up 2 in Frost Warding and 3 in Elemental Precision, 5 in Ice Shards, 3 in Piercing Ice, and 1 in Cold Snap. And then the final 2 points can go into Arcane Subtlety. Now for the runes with the head, we're of course going to go for Hot Streak. This is a change that I've been asking for a long time to move Hot Streak, because we couldn't take Frost Firebolt and Hot Streak together, so it was really unfortunate. And they did actually change Hot Streak to proc off of Frost Firebolt, but then they never actually changed the rune slot. So it was a very weird change, and I've been tweeting about this, and I'm glad it's finally changed. So yes, Mage is going to be huge, because now we can use Hot Streak and Frost Firebolt. It's going to be very good. So this is hard locked in for fire. Chest, we're going with Burnout. Enlightenment just doesn't sim as good as it used to. Burnout is very strong. For the wrist, we're going with Bellfire Bolt. Now, what the situation is at the moment is Bellfire Bolt is performing very strong at level 60. It's absolutely fantastic, but the problem is depending on the length of the fights. Now, what you'll see is if you look at logs, if you look at top players, they're always going to be running Bellfire Bolt. Now the thing is, a lot of my subscribers and people who watch my videos might not be the top player in the top guild. So Molten Armor is still a very good choice if you're struggling for mana. Because if you're in a guild where you're not progressing as fast as everyone else, Mage will struggle with mana. So bear this in mind. Don't be afraid to change from the meta, because if you don't have a group that's going to perform in the meta, then you won't be necessarily looking at what's the highest DPS, but more how can I get the most DPS while sustaining mana. If we're not having short fights, it's going to be an issue in the long run. For the hand rune, we're going with Living Bomb. There's no explanation needed. For the waist, again, no explanation. It's going to be Frost Firebolt. This is very strong. It was slightly nerfed recently to reduce its damage by I think 16%, but it's still very good. For the leg runes, we're using Icy Veins. Now Icy Veins is just so good for single target damage because we're taking Cold Snap. We can Icy Veins, Cold Snap, Icy Veins. It's just really good. You can use Living Flame, but of course it was nerfed in the past. It's not performing as good as it used to, but if you need AoE, if you need, it's situational. For the most part, you'll take Icy Veins, but you can use Living Flame for trash packs and everything else. For the feat, we're going with Spell Power because this is the most DPS, but a recent change in Brain Freeze that it allows not only Frost Firebolt, but also a Bellfire Bolt, and it can be an instant cast and cost no mana. So the conversation we were talking about just a minute ago is that, of course, if you're running out of mana or you're struggling with mana, in the long run, we're going to wait and see what happens, but Brain Freeze could be a good play in the future. But for raw output DPS, then Spell Power is the one to use. The new Cloak slot sees 3 new runes. They're pretty obvious which one you're going to go for. You've got Arcane Barrage for Arcane, you've got Frozen Orb for Frost, and Overheat. Now Overheat is very good because Fire Blast will always deal a critical strike. can be cast while casting another spell, and is not affected by the global cooldown. So what this means is basically for absolute maximum DPS, we can just literally macro this into our abilities, and it will just be cast on cooldown, and it will always crit, so it's going to be very, very good with hot streaks. We can also time it if we want to use our hot streaks in a clever way, but for raw DPS, you'll literally just want to bind it to all of your abilities so that it's going off on cooldown. Now, the new ring slots allow for hit, so what we're going to do is take one for fire specialization and one for frost specialization. That's pretty much what we're going to do. You can't stack these. It's not like you can have 2 fire or 2 frost. So it's a good little change, but it's not like the best thing in the world. But hey, it's going to help us a lot with hit, so I'm happy with that. So that's all the talents and the runes. If you have any questions, comment down below. If you think that I've got something wrong, this is purely speculation at the minute. I've seen some numbers, I've run some sims, but as usual, we don't actually know what it's going to be like when we get there. So many times I've said one thing and it turns out to be another thing. So take this with a pinch of salt, but I'm 95% sure this is the way we'll be going. Now we're going to look at some pre-best in slot gear. Now the really cool thing about this phase is that we're going to get most of our best in slot gear straight up from dungeons, which is a really nice change, because in the past it's been like, oh, this quest reward might be better, or for some classes you literally just had BOEs like greens. I don't enjoy that. I like a purpose to grinding dungeons and getting rewarded for it. Now the good thing about this is the majority of our gear will be from these dungeons. Firstly, before I get into it, I want to talk about this sorcerer's set. So obviously there is a tier 0 set, which is called the Magister's set. Now this was changed recently, so the set bonus has changed, and what we're looking for really is the 6 set. Your spell casts have a 6% chance to energize you for 300 mana, which is going to help a lot with mana, and obviously the 4 set now gives 23 increased damage. We won't be going for the 8 set because that's plus 8 all resistances, but if we feel like that's necessary, you can of course pick up the 8 set. Now what you'll want to do is you'll want to pick these up, and then you can go and do a quest to upgrade it to either epic or to the sorcerer's set in general. It's going to be very strong, so I'll go through each one and where you can get it, etc. So for the head, we're getting the sorcerer's crown, which the head drops from Scholomance. From the Dark Master Gandling, you'll get this Magister's crown, then you can go and do the quest to upgrade it. For the neck, we've got the Orb of the Dark Moon, which can be obtained from the Dark Moon Fair for 1,200 tickets. It's slightly better than the Chains of the Lich because of the stamina and the spirit, but if you don't want to spend your tickets, or you don't have the gold or anything like that, you can get this Chains of the Lich, which is from Stratholme. It's a 33% chance and it's 22 spell damage. It's very nice. For the shoulders, it's the Sorcerer's Mantle. Again, this is upgraded from the Magister's Mantle, which drops in Scholomance. For the cloak, we're just going to use a plus 20 or plus 21 fire damage cloak, a green one. It's a world drop. They should be on the auction house fairly quickly. For the robe, it's the Sorcerer's Robe. Once again, this drops from Upper Blackrock Spire. From the Magister's Robes, you can upgrade it to the Sorcerer's Robes. Now, one thing, you could go for the robe of the Archmage, but I really wouldn't bother. The recipe is BOE, and everyone is going to be needing on this, unless you're getting in guild groups and you manage to get hold of this. But even still, when you craft it, it's bind on pickup, and it's not that much better than the Sorcerer's Robe. So I wouldn't put all your time into it. If you happen to be a tailor and it drops, that's great. Otherwise, just go for the set. For the wrist, we've got the Warsong Gulch wrist. If you haven't done the reputation for this, then what you should do is just pick up some BOE braces. So the same set, Magister's bindings, will come on the auction house quite expensive to begin with. So you can upgrade these into the Sorcerer's set. But if they are really expensive, then just go for some green Fiery Wrath ones. For the weapon, we want to go for the dagger from being exalted with Arathi Basin rep. It's a very, very good dagger, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have the rep. For example, we can get this one once the wild bosses are unlocked. That's a very, very nice weapon. Otherwise, if you have the Blade of Eternal Darkness and you did that grind, then just keep hold of that one for now. Otherwise, if you're a fresh player, you can also get this Vermonde's Last Resort from a quest in Eastern Plaguelands. It's got 19 spell damage and a little bit of intellect and stamina. It's a very good dagger for a starter, but obviously if you do have the reputation, then fair play to you. You will be rewarded with this dagger. It's very, very nice. For the offhand, we have this AV Exalted offhand. Now, I expect everyone will be able to do this. The Exalted grind for AV is very, very easy, so you should get this fairly quickly, and it will be used for a long time. If you don't have the rep or you don't want to do any PvP at all, you can of course get the ST offhand equivalent of this one. If you haven't done ST, then just use the personal spellbook until you get hold of this fiery AV one. For the gloves, we've got these Infernal gloves, which is from Tailoring. It's BOE, so it should be on the auction house quite cheap. It tends to start off expensive and then it gets very cheap. If for some reason you can't get it, or you're not a tailor and nobody will make it for you, etc., then just again go to the Schoolomance and get the Magister's gloves, and you can upgrade them to the Sorcerer's gloves. But to be honest, the fire damage from these gloves is very, very nice, so if you can get hold of them, they're the ones to use. For the belt, then we're using the Arathi Basin Honored Reputation belt. If you don't have it, again, it's going to be from this Magister's belt. This one is BOE. You might get it on your dungeon runs. It's a world drop, so it will end up on the auction house, and eventually you can upgrade it to the Sorcerer's belt with the quest. But of course, it might be very, very expensive, so just bear that in mind. A lot of this stuff is very good. This Sorcerer's set is very nice. If you can get hold of all the pieces, that's going to give you a bit to play around with, because you might get some other sets from the raid that will replace some set items. If you have all of the Sorcerer's set, then it's worth picking up because you can mix and match to keep that sort of set bonus. For the legs, again, surprise, surprise, it's the Sorcerer's leggings, which comes from Magister's leggings. Again, you can upgrade it. This is from Stratholme, the undead version. Then we've got the boots, again, Sorcerer's sandals. These are the best boots. They're upgraded from the Magister's boots, which is from Stratholme Live. Very good, worth getting, no alternatives. I'm not giving any alternatives to these because these are all from dungeons. So you should just be farming dungeons the second you get to 60. And that's what's very exciting for me. For the rings, we're going with this Don Maurizio's Band of Domination. 1% crit, 11 spell damage. It drops in Schoolomance. It's very, very good. And then we've got a brand new ring added for Season of Discovery, which is the Burning Ring of Fire. It improves our crit chance by 1% and increases damage by fire spells and effects by 19. This will drop in the brand new dungeon. We don't know much about that dungeon or where it is, but it's going to be in the game and it's got some nice loot. Now with trinkets, I'm going to give you a list of trinkets that you should definitely pick up. These are the ones that I feel are going to be the best for me for burst. Now that is the Draconic Infused Emblem, which drops in Upper Blackrock Spire. It's giving us a very nice on use, and I'm using the Ritual Charm because I have the Ritual Charm. If you haven't done ST, then it might just be worth skipping this one. I'm not saying these are the two best trinkets, and I'm going to show you some alternatives now. So we've got the Burst of Knowledge, which you'll definitely want to pick up regardless, because all of these are situational and will have their situational use. This is from Blackrock Depths. It reduces mana of all spells by 100 for 10 seconds. So again, what we were talking about with mana, this is going to help a lot. Otherwise, we've got this Briarwood Reed, which just gives us a flat 29 spell damage. This is from Upper Blackrock Spire. It's also worth picking up this Smolderweb's Eye from Lower Blackrock Spire. It gives 13 stamina, which is good for PvP, but for the most part, it's 14 spell damage, but also poisons the target for 20 nature damage every 2 seconds for 20 seconds. It will be interesting to see how this interacts. It may add a little bit of DPS. We'll see how it goes, but it's worth picking up if it drops. If you can get it, then keep hold of it. Then, of course, the miniaturized combustion chamber. If you have it, keep hold of it. Situationally, we might use it. If you're a fresh character and you have the Void Pearl even, just keep hold of the Void Pearl. There's a number of trinkets you should have in your bags at all times, and you can swap them out for situations. Lastly, for the wand, I've got the Nightmare Trophy, which drops in ST. Now, if you haven't done ST or you're not going to do it, then of course you have some other options. You can get this Pyrrhic wand from Blackrock Depths. You'll probably be running Blackrock Depths quite often, so you can get this one, 13 fire damage. Or we've got the Bone Creeper Stylus, which drops in Scholomance. You'll definitely be running this one a lot, and it's an arcane wand, which is fairly good for if you ever need to heal. 4 intellect, 11 spell damage. It's slightly worse than the ST one, but it's definitely worth picking up. So there you go. That's all of the talents, the Pre-BiS gear, and everything else. Hopefully you found this very useful. Let me know in the comments how you feel. But yeah, Phase 4 is coming. It's going to be very, very good. I know people are saying, oh, Season of Discovery is dead. I agree that Phase 3 was a bit of a snooze fest. Even I took a break. I haven't uploaded in 2 months. You would have seen that. But now we're getting into the main part of the game. Level 60 is where it really explodes. This is where we're having the most fun, and we're just getting started. So if you think that that phase from level 1 all the way up to level 60, or 50 I should say, was not as good, we haven't even got started, guys. This is where it really kicks off. So if you're on the fence thinking about, should I get into the game, should I come back, let me tell you, Fire Mage is S tier. It's going to be one of the top performing, if not the top performing. The only thing I would say, obviously, with the hard modes, etc., we don't know how long the fights are going to be. It might be that Mage falls off a little bit with mana, which is why we were talking about having some flexibility with gear and with talents. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video, and have a lovely day.